Fala galera, sejam bem-vindos a mais um Dodge and Burn podcast. Dessa vez a gente vai conversar em inglês, porque eu tenho um convidado especial aqui. E só para deixar vocês ligados, quem quiser conferir a entrevista em inglês, é só ativar no YouTube a legenda em português que vai gerar para vocês, beleza? So now let's convert to English. Hello everybody, hello boys and girls, directly from Silicon Valley area. My name is Hugo Seneviva. I am your host, and today I have the pleasure to speak with a great artist that I just met a couple of days ago, but I have been following him for a long time. His name is Ian Vicknair. He's a matte painter and also a 3D digital matte painter. He currently works at Scanline, and he also does a lot of cool freelance work. What's up, Ian? How are you, man?
I'm good, Hugo. How are you?
I'm very good, very good. It's Saturday morning, and thank you so much for waking up early.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait. Yeah, I have my coffee here too. I cannot wait to talk to you, get to know a little bit, and get to know a little bit of behind the scenes of the cool work that you do.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm a matte painter in the industry. More matte painting than 3D by anything. And how many years is it now? I think it's reaching 7 years of being in the visual effects industry.
How old are you right now?
I'm 29. I turned
29, you're
30.
young.
Yeah.
Damn, dude,
Yeah.
you're young.
I turned 30 in 2 months. Oh man, that's gonna be a milestone right there.
Yes, yeah, I can tell you it was a big milestone for me. I think it is for everybody because
Yeah.
it's like everything you just get a little older. But you know what? I love my 30s, man. And I think it's the cool age when you're mature enough
Yeah.
and you make money enough that you're okay, now I'm a big
Yeah.
boy, you know? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, now I can do whatever I really want and can go after it, and let's just have some fun with it a bit.
yes, absolutely. So to start, can you tell us a little bit of how was your discovery for loving to make art, and how was it the beginning, and do like a little timeline until nowadays? You can
How I
take
got,
your
yeah,
time. You
yeah.
can take your time
Mhm.
and go ahead.
How I got into art. Um, that was a little bit tricky, because I've always been into art, ever since I just grew up, well, was born. Um, the way I actually got into art was because of my parents. I'm adopted from Sofia, Bulgaria, and they adopted me when I was 6 years old, and we had a bit of a language barrier. They spoke English, I spoke Bulgarian, and at that time it was communication just wasn't there. So the way we started was my mother gave me crayons and paper, and she
Ah,
would like point at like a glass of water, draw the glass of water. You need to go to the bathroom, she would draw the symbol. If you needed a knife or a fork or a plate or whatever it was, we would draw it and then I'll just show her. So then from there we went into like I don't know if they still make it anymore. You know, like those little like alphabet letters that you put on the fridge? Like we would start
yep.
like spelling those out, and then we would get more magnets of cartoon characters or whatever, and then with the drawings connected, and slowly started to learn English with that. And from there, art and drawing just stuck with me. And from growing up, we moved all over the world. So to give people a little bit of an idea, my parents were international teachers at American schools, and we moved from Brazil, Ethiopia, Lithuania, Russia, Saudi Arabia, and then finally the United States. And just every kind of 2, 3 years, just hopped around a little bit. And I was never that good in school, I'll be honest. Was not that great. I was stuck in the art room. I was a kid like everyone needed an art project done, they just came to me and my friends. Then we did all the art projects, and then we came to them going like, "Hey, you do our math homework. Like
Mm-hmm.
we got a good deal going on."
That's sick. So
Um,
like since you're young, like that was
yeah,
because if you use that as your form of communication with your parents in the beginning, that was like your baseline for life, right?
it really was. It started with everything, and then when meeting my grandparents, um, they did the same thing, and that kind of weirdly enough expanded into other things of like cooking together, taking care of plants together, household stuff. And you kind of learn different forms of communication rather than just pen on paper. Because a lot of people tend to think communication is just verbal, but it's body language, it's eye movement, it's listening, it's talking, it's writing,
Mm-hmm.
it's your actions, it's cause and effect. There's all forms of communication, and for me, everything was always visual. So that's what we just focused on more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
I was never good at even reading and writing or history. So like I would just make like either timelines of images or draw my own, like weirdly enough, like I would draw the essay out as like a comic in a way, and then from
Oh, that's
there, then
awesome.
you go and write it just to understand like the layout of what it needed to be. Um, and it just became the form of communication. And then I got into Photoshop because my dad was the IT coordinator of the school, and sometimes he was the principal, which wasn't always the best thing. When I'm going to the same school as him, couldn't get away with shit, um, but he introduced me to just using a computer. And weirdly enough, in Ethiopia, we had Photoshop CS1, the first ever Adobe Photoshop. But what
Nice.
was weird about it was like Adobe gave the school the first version of Photoshop, yet at that time in 2006, Photoshop was already on like version 6 and 7. So they were already like
Oh.
7 years ahead. They just gave the first version to the school, like, hey, play with it, have fun with it. So then, like every semester, it was a massive step up in the program because we're like, this is just mind blowing of just like speeding up through
Mm-hmm.
the versions.
Wow.
And just got into Photoshop with it because of my art teacher at the time. And then with my dad and everything, it just was like, all right, this is meant to be kind of a thing. Um, and fast forward into college, I went for graphic design and art, communications and art.
Where?
I went to a small school in Minnesota.
Nice.
Um, it was pretty brutal to do actually because the my family they weren't rich, but they weren't poor. But at the same time, it really was like you had to pick your battles, and um, it was a bit heartbreaking to not be able to go to big schools. We were even just looking at like not even going to school anyway, just because it was so expensive. And part of it was like the trauma effect of life, where it was everyone always has like the stigma that art doesn't make any money. And
Yep.
even growing up, my parents were like, we know that you like art and that's fantastic. Like you have your life passion, but just know that you're not going to be making a single thing with this.
Yeah. Everybody's
Uh,
skeptical, right? Like, oh, it's a cool
yeah,
hobby. It's a cool hobby for you to have. You have great skills, but we don't know
yeah,
if you're gonna have to be able to provide, you're
mhm,
gonna be able to, yeah.
yeah. And there
Even
was
nowadays, though, nowadays I think it's changed a little bit
it's
because, but it's
definitely
still
changing.
like people
Mhm.
still have a little bit of like,
There's still that stigma there, and
so you just
it's
draw the whole day, right? So they have some questions like this. Oh, so you make
exactly,
money drawing things and
mm,
imaginary
yeah,
scenarios and imaginary worlds?
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and then sometimes they'll like to test to see if it's actually true. They'll be like, "How much did you make? Did you really make anything? How's it being used?" And And I know my parents did that quite a bit because they were always a little bit skeptical, even of VFX, matte painting.
Those
And
were different times too, right? Than what we're living nowadays.
yeah, that's for sure. It's definitely different times. But it was difficult staying within art. There were a few times when I completely checked out of it, um, uh, just because of the moments that were happening. So like to put it in context a little bit, in middle school, when my brother was graduating, they were debating about who they could help afford to go to college and who um, wouldn't go to school. So
I
they
see.
sat me and my brother down and they're like, well, we're going to go with your brother because, well, my brother's a genius. He's incredibly smart, like far smarter than me. So we're going to go with him because he's going to make money and have a big job and career. And Ian, you're going to be doing art. So,
It's kind
I
of a
think
cold blood decision, right?
it really was cold blooded. It was just fucking cutthroat. And parents weren't like, Ian, you're gonna have to learn how to say two things. First being paper or plastic because of working in grocery stores, or would you like fries with that because of fast food restaurants? Because they were really going like, you're going into art. What job is there for this? Like, you might be working at like a newspaper stand or working for a newspaper company in the middle of Minnesota, out in literally nowhere. Like your next door neighbor's 20 miles away from you.
And it's
And
half of the year. It's cold as hell,
yeah, exactly.
like
So,
freezing. Not just cold, like
oh
different kind
yeah,
of cold.
yeah,
Minnesota. I never been, but I have some friends that live there. It's gnarly, man. It's
oh
gnarly.
yeah, oh yeah. I've had snow way above me.
Wow.
Um, it's sometimes even colder than Moscow, living in Russia. And we're
Holy
like at the
shit.
same equator and such. But so my parents kind of went into that a little bit, and then when going and applying for colleges, I got into any school I desired, just couldn't afford it. So finally, after a little bit of time, it was like, all right, there's a community school, let's go to that. Did that because it was honestly cheap and affordable. And it was like, okay, it's something to like get you going in life a little bit. And after finishing that school, um, I felt so stuck. I moved to Wisconsin, um, and I started working in restaurants because anytime I applied for being a graphic designer, nothing was sticking. Because it's always like the stigma of like you got to have 2 or 3 years of experience already. So it's like, how do you get experience? Use
Yeah. How do
literally
you
your
get experience if
experience.
nobody gives me a chance, right?
Exactly. And I think there's actually a workaround that we can go into later. But started working in restaurants and being a waiter, and from there, I actually wrote an article about I think actually anyone who's in the art industry should be a waiter or waitress because you get to learn how to be a you get to learn how to be the client when you're ordering food at a restaurant, but then you get to have the flip side of being the waiter waitress of serving and dealing with the tips, negotiating, trying to upsell something,
Mm-hmm.
delivering the food, make sure that the quality is there, bringing it on time, just like basics
Yep.
that like a lot of artists and just people kind of struggle with a little bit. And weirdly enough, that just fed into going into freelancing for graphic design. And what you see actually on my art station is not even close to my portfolio that I had when I was um, putting it out there. I did a lot of creative images, kind of like what you've got on your Instagram. And an advertising agency reached out saying like, "Hey, we have an open house. Come on in. We're doing studio tours. Just show up." So I was like,
Open
"Okay,
house, just sorry
yeah."
to stop you there. Open house is like, hey, we're looking for our people, or like we just
Oh, it's
how
just to
does
get
that work?
together. In open house, studios will do it sometimes. It's just a way to get people in the doors, just to,
To
like,
connect, like
yeah, just to connect. But studios also do it because it allows them to kind of show off a little bit, to
ah,
especially if they are renovated or they move to a different location, or they're trying to show like, hey, we did like the movie of the year and we want to like show it on the big screen in our studio with everyone.
I see.
So uh, the head of animation there, Mike, he invited me. He saw my work and he was like, hey, be here. And I was like, I got nothing to lose. Screw it. Let's go.
Yeah.
So I went and he pulled me out from the group and did a studio tour with me and everyone else. And at the end of the tour, he was just like, be here tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. sharp. I have a job for you. And he's like, it's called matte painting. We have a matte painting job. Be here, 8 a.m. sharp. So I
And
just,
you
yeah,
never did matte painting before.
never heard of it. Didn't even know what the term was. No idea. I was just like, you know what? It's a freelance gig. I'm just going to say yes
Yeah, fuck it.
because,
Yeah.
yeah, screw it. I live in the middle of Wisconsin doing nothing except cooking for people and a lot of drinking. So I want to get out of here. Let's do it. So I just said yes. First job, yes.
Wow.
And then the next day went in and uh, the art director there came from the mill in New York, Jeff Stevens, and we did our first commercial. But that previous night, I went home and I Googled the crap out of matte painting. And
Just to be like a little
oh,
prepared, right? Like even if you don't
yeah,
know what you're doing, at
yeah,
least if he asks me a question.
exactly. Just a little bit, but got so stuck on the imagery of what it was. I didn't even know any of the technical terms. I was just stuck on like, wow, this is a thing. This is
Which year was
possible.
that though?
This was 2015, no, 2016. Yeah.
Cool.
And I saw Max Berman's class on Learn Squared. I saw Stephen Corman. I was seeing stuff all over CGMA. Um, that's when Noman started as well. And it just clicked. And I consider this like my first true, real, authentic love in life because I saw it and it clicked and I just fell madly in love with this. Like this is what I've been feeling my calling is forever. Um, and um, and went, did the job for the month, made the most amount of money in 1 month in my life doing a matte painting. And I was like, this is possible.
And did he like your first work? Tell me, just go deep a
Actually,
little bit on that first thing, or you don't know. Like,
oh, the first job I screwed up so badly. I ended up having to remake the painting. Uh, and the company was okay with it because they're like, yeah, it's your first one, it's okay.
they
So
probably
they,
saw a lot of potential on
yeah,
those mistakes, right?
yeah. And they were really good about teaching me of like, hey, here's what overscan is, here's how you need to separate the layers a little bit, just to help start like the thread of knowledge for it. And the commercial came out great. And it was doing like this hover tractor that goes over a field and shoots weeds that sprout out.
Mm-hmm.
And then this hover tractor turns around and flies up into space and goes into like a platform up in the sky.
That's
Um,
cool.
yeah, it was really cool. And I was like, oh man, if I can do this, I can do
Yeah,
anything
if
at this
this is my
point. Like,
life now, hell
yeah,
yeah, I'm
it
in.
was perfect. And then from there, I didn't get any other matte painting work for like another 6 months. And then the same company asked me to come in again.
Ah, that was a
And
freelance. That was a
yeah,
freelance work. Okay.
yeah, just a small freelance job. And then during that first job and my second job, I just Googled everything about Photoshop, everything about matte painting. I already knew how to do Photoshop pretty extensively at that time. So it's just kind of learning the orientation of steps
Mm-hmm.
and learning some of the technical side of it rather than just the creative. And then from there going, okay, what do I already know? How do I need to refine it to fit matte painting specifically? And from there, just went for it. After a while, I was trying to go back to school actually, uh, trying to go to Noman, but I just couldn't afford it. So I had, I'll be very honest, I had a big mental breakdown in Wisconsin. I just I went back to cooking in restaurants after my freelance gig. And I felt like the pattern was happening again of I'm gonna be stuck here.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like one of those days when you're like mind, body, and soul unite and go, nope, you're gonna go do this. So I went and stayed with my parents, left Wisconsin, went, stayed with my parents for a little bit. And during that time of like, as a teacher would say, butt in chair time, just to hone down on the skill. And I had to have been doing like 12 to 15 hours of Photoshop a day for like 5 months of just painting after painting after painting. And well, sorry to backtrack a little bit. I took Max Berman's class off of Learn Squared.
Nice.
And that did eventually give me another freelance job. But then to go forward again, yeah, stayed with my parents for a little bit, and I was debating between going to New York or LA. Um,
Because
and
these are the two meccas, right? If you want
oh
the
yeah,
work, that's where the work is.
exactly. Because even when trying to freelance, all these companies were like, you got to be in the city. If you're not, you can't come in tomorrow morning. And so I was like, okay, this is a huge risk to go out there with no experience.
And by the way,
Um,
it's these are two of the most expensive places to live. So it's not like it's
oh yeah,
completely different from living in the Midwest. It's like
yeah,
you don't know anybody. Like it's a shot in the dark. Let's put it
yeah.
like that.
Oh, it really was. And I was going like, okay, I have enough savings for like 6 months. And so was staying with my parents for a little bit. It's like, let's make portfolio examples. So that way when I'm there, I can shop around and not waste time and not burn money. Um, and while kind of studying a bit, figuring this out, I was also heavily pushing out for freelancing work and got a few gigs here and there.
Trying to
Uh,
connect with people and also making
yeah.
the were you making the portfolio kind of thinking about specific studios, or was just more what you're seeing overall in the matte painting industry?
What I was seeing overall, because everyone said you had to make portfolio examples based on the studios, but I call bullshit uh, because it's a lot of the studios at this current time and date do the same projects. Back then, like 20 years ago, oh, not even 20 years ago, probably 30, um, that was very specific work for certain studios where you had to make work for that studio. And you
Mm-hmm.
would spend months and months just for that one studio. But now with today's age, you have a lot more diversity to kind of spam all at once for everything. And
Yeah.
a lot of studios now have the same clients. So it was kind of going like, all right, I just need to read the job description and make work based on that job description, and meet the quality and standards that they're aiming for
And also
hire.
show what you can do, right? What is your
Yeah,
style, what how you see it, because especially I feel like nowadays,
yeah,
if they hire you as a freelance, they don't want you to do the same stuff that they already saw, because otherwise they don't need
yeah,
you. Like
yeah,
you need to have something that is different. If it's your creativity, if it's the way
exactly.
that you present your images or any type of detail work that you do, like
Mm.
especially nowadays, is like the value of the artist, it's very big, I feel like.
Oh yeah, and it's only going to get bigger, I think, and bigger and more specific. And and so during that time, just learning Photoshop and putting a portfolio together and trying to freelance as much as I could. And I got a few gigs here and there, which I was like, oh, this is perfect for getting uh, a portfolio together to show like, hey, I've got experience and personal pieces, so that when I go there, I I have um, evidence, proof that hey, I'm worth you hiring me for. And a company out in New York, Framestore, reached out to me saying like, hey, we want you to join our internship program. And when uh, we did the interview, I did a matte painting of a burnt house, and the CG supervisor there called bullshit on it, saying like, I think you did all of this in 3D, not as an actual matte painting, because he was like, it looks that realistic, and I was like,
Was that
no.
good? So here are the layers, motherfucker.
Exactly, yeah. He called BS, and I told him like I've
What a
got
dick.
Photoshop open.
What a dick.
Oh, it was worth it though, because he called BS, and I opened up Photoshop right there and then, showed him all the layers, and he just was like, "You're hired. You're gonna be here like in a
Wow.
week."
Nice.
Um, and it was worth it. It was worth him calling me out on it. Um, and moved to New York for the 6 months, and it the first week started as the internship, then the second week started as we're hiring you as a contractor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it completely flipped.
It's like
So
this is not an intern. Like
yeah,
we
like
need to
here we
give this to
go.
somebody that's way lower this level. Like this is a
Yeah,
different level. That's awesome.
it was
That must have
great.
been a good feeling for you, right? At first, like big victory
Mhm.
and like big validation of like years of you
Yeah,
grinding and fucking suffering everything.
yeah, it was because even my parents called Noman, and the receptionist there said like if he can't go to school for this, he's not going to be able to get a job at all. And other schools that we called and talked to said the same thing. If you don't go to school for this, you'll never get a job in the industry. Boom. A few months later, got into frame store. And then to like top it off, one of the teachers at one of these colleges calls me personally and says, "Hey, I have a matte painting job for you. I want to hire you and not my students that I'm teaching." And I was like, I made it.
Yeah,
Like
that's
I
it.
just beat out all these students and all these
And I
colleges
never
for
saw any
matte painting.
class.
Exactly. And for me, I was just like, this just proves to me it just fed into like I can do this, I can achieve this. Um,
That's
my
so cool, man.
my parents still didn't believe much in it. Though they're kind of going, it's still a shot in the dark and good luck. Um, and even like when getting a freelance job, they would just be like, how much did you make? Uh, what currency? Uh, and how's it being used? I want to see
What
it.
currency?
Yeah, because sometimes it was I would
Are
get
you
like a
getting
Chinese
paid in
company.
pesos? That's why it's
Yeah,
this much.
yeah, they were kind of curious of like, is it pesos? Are you being paid in Chinese currency,
Uh-huh.
Canadian? Like, what is it?
Damn. So it's almost was like harder for you to prove to your parents
Oh, it
that
was difficult.
you were worth than to prove to the industry, right?
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
your
yeah.
parents were like your worst client, pretty much.
Much. Um, and from there, just yeah, started the job. Started learning Nuke hardcore with it at the company, and this CG supervisor who hired me sat right next to me the entire time.
Was it
And
cool? After
oh,
that little bullshit, the
oh
shit.
yeah, he was great. He was the one teaching me Nuke how to utilize the program.
Ah,
And after a few months of using the program, I felt like my brain was like about to explode because it's such an in-depth program. And I told him like, dude, I need a little bit of Photoshop. I've been doing Nuke for the last like 3 months, every day, 10 hours a day. I need Photoshop. So he's like, okay, we have a commercial for you. It's just plate cleanup. We're gonna give you 2 weeks for this. One day later, done. Assignment's done. And he's just like, I sat next to you and watched you get it done. And he's like, I've never seen anybody get this done that quick. Like, this is good.
in one day.
In one day, it was just two
God
shots just to
damn.
clean it up. And it was pretty extensive for it. And but I mean at this time, like now being a senior, that would be a 1 day job. But as other juniors, sometimes it would take 2 weeks for it just because it is a lot of fixing up mistakes
Mm-hmm.
on every level. And
But your flow is just perfect. Like,
I mean, there's always room for improvement on it, but
yeah, but I mean,
it
like,
just at the
compared to
time,
what he was expecting, he was pretty much
yeah,
like, what the hell? Like, this dude just.
yeah. And it worked and just started from there. All right, let's get some more map paintings done. The company was looking to fly me out to London to work with the best map painters in the world that are there. But it didn't work because of budgetary stuff. And when the internship ended, uh, the the internship and the contract ended, I was wanting to stay in New York, but uh, I'll be honest, I got too afraid of staying because I was afraid of like, oh my God, it's such an expensive city. And when I was trying to reach out to people for working, just nothing was clicking. So like the fear of failure came into to play a little bit of like, oh man, maybe this was just a happy accident and this is not meant to be or something.
Damn.
So I went back to Minnesota, worked for an agency there, doing a lot of nuke work and a little bit of map painting stuff. Um, and I just felt that sense of being stuck again, and that it wasn't the place for me to be. And 6 months later, uh, a company in Montreal, Canada, calls me up for moving there to be a junior artist there. And from there, onward and upward, from NBC with Mill Film to Scanline and Mondo, then Zoic, and now back at Scanline. So it's definitely a big journey to hustle it and really just grind for it. But it's worth it. I love what I do. I can't complain.
Damn, and
Um,
you have been through a lot, man. Like, first of all, your story is amazing, and congratulations for never giving up on your dream. I I
Never
I don't
will
have a
I.
story that is like yours, but I have been through some things when I came here, and I really admire people that, you know, this is what I am. I believe it,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna make it work no matter how many fucking years take it or how many people I need to knock down. I'm gonna live from this because this is my dream. So,
Yeah.
first of all, big kudos to you. You're my hero. I really love this story. I was like, damn. I was like, it was like what the whole movie was going through my head, you know, like just trying to put myself in your place. And thinking about that, what was the moment that you thought, okay, now I am stabilized on this, and like, okay, I'm really like, I am one of the names of Matthew Payne. Like, I can hold my own on this industry. Like, I have no more fear.
Um,
When did that feeling came that you're like, okay, I'm good. Like, no matter what happened, I'm gonna.
it's a good question. That feeling's always on and off because there are map painters out there that make me look like a child's toy. Um,
Like
like,
who?
oh, Dylan Cole,
I was gonna
no,
say, is it Dylan
Stephen
Cole?
Messing. Oh, I adore that man. Like for me, Dylan Cole, Do So, and Stephen Messing are my top three that I look up to, and for them, I study their images in and out. I pixel fuck their images all the time.
Pixel fuck. That's a good term.
It's a VFX term
Ah,
where
okay.
I've had somebody in a movie theater, I shit you not, zoom in on a movie theater scale cinema on 1 pixel and say it's the wrong color in a fucking movie theater, saying, "Hey,
Wow.
that's wrong color, change it." I'm like, it's 1 pixel, man. Like, and it's not even on screen for a second. Like, chill. It's nuts.
Wow.
That's the
No,
level
but
of
that's
pixel
the
fucking
level,
for
right?
me.
That's the level
Yeah.
of detail.
Mm.
And
Yeah. And but I guess my moment for going like, okay, I made it. I don't see it as a moment, but in terms of seeing the repetitive action of just getting hurt again and again and again. Um,
it can be even a project, like after you did this project,
it
say, okay, I'm
yeah,
getting a flow of jobs now.
but it wasn't even the job. It was just the continuous consistency and
I
it
see.
getting more and more gave me the affirmation of like, yes, this is working, this is happening, and that I can keep it stabilized. Because it's always in the beginning when it's always going to be up and down. It's very rocky, and your emotions are going to go high and down. And you're wondering, is this really worth it? So after sticking with it, of going, okay, let's just take a chance, let's do this. Actually, the first movie I worked on was Cats. And that one, with it being a massive flop and how difficult of a movie that was, I was contemplating leaving the industry and be like, no, let's go back and work at in a bar or something and figure out life again. And a friend told me like, no, just stick through it, try one more company, and it's different. Give it a shot, see how you like it, and then make a final decision. And after that, got Scanline and it went great. And from there, it's just like, okay, I really do like what I do. Uh, but I'd say like the feeling that everything's okay is based on the continuous flow of getting hired, but also weirdly enough, taking breaks at times.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because that kind of tests you a little bit of like, hey, if I take a month off just to relax a little bit, I know eventually I'm going to get hired by somebody. So I don't need to worry and scramble for work. I can just let go a little bit
Pace
and
yourself a little bit, right? And have a
exactly.
little balance in your life
Yeah.
because as you
Yeah.
get older,
Mhm.
we love
You want
what
more
we do,
balance.
but it's not 100% of your life. It's never gonna be
Exactly.
work. You need other stuff to balance it out so you can be
Yeah.
happy as a human and
Yeah.
not be on that constantly like
Mhm.
paranoia, like where's my next job? Where's my next job?
Exactly.
I'm gonna make the next paycheck.
Mhm. And this is why I also like freelancing because um you can build off of that to like, okay, I want to save up for the future a little bit. So in case I don't have a job, I have something, I have a little bit of a backup. But then to answer your question, on the side note of it, freelancing helped with that a bit because uh, an old freelancer friend told me like you should always ask your client how they found you or why did they pick you. And the one consistent answer I always got was just the quality of work. It wasn't that it was the most imaginative at all. I mean, there are people on ArtStation that I open up and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I can't, my imagination's not that good. Um, but the but I get hired not for the imaginary part, a little bit of it and the creativity, but I get it for the quality and the scope of work for it. So with that consistency, it was like, okay, um, this is giving me the confidence and the knowledge of like this is working. Um, I can keep this growing. I can keep this consistent. This is meant to happen, and I don't need to worry so much.
Nice.
Yeah, I hope that answers. That
Nice.
was a very
No, that was awesome. That was
in-depth
awesome.
answer.
Don't worry about going off the rails. Like this is how this podcast is, man.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
And
Um,
mhm,
and I was thinking about here because you said that you started with the 2D and then you ended up migrating to Nuke. And I don't know which other software you use for your work nowadays, but like, how was the adaptation from coming from a 2D where nothing is moving, like you're making like a still. Of course, it can be animated after, but I'm
yeah,
sure when you do the 3D, you can kind of animate a little bit, right? Camera wise,
yeah.
or how was that adaptation to go from 2D to 3D? And if there's any big difference on the workflow between those?
Oh, it's such a pain in the ass, 3D.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I am not a 3D fan. I'm very much like um Dylan Cole. Like he even said, like I fucking hate 3D because it's so technical. Like my best friend Nicola, he is an expert at this stuff. He can open up any one of these 3D programs and go and get shit done. But for me, it's I avoid 3D like the Black Plague. I don't find a lot of joy in it because I don't feel there's a lot of creativity to it. So to get things moving, um, it's horrible to say, but I do like the bare minimum almost of like, okay, let's import, export, get the camera, do basic UVing, basic modeling, and basic shaders. Um, and then just learning, okay, how does the camera work? How do I do some basic lighting? Nothing too extravagant, nothing ultra photorealistic detailed in 3D, because that takes an immense amount of time. And I find it impressive that people can do that because on the 2D side, if I don't like something, I can go and switch it out in a second and just keep that iteration going.
Mm-hmm.
But with 3D, it has to be much more planned out.
It's too many parameters, right? It's too many things can
It's
go
too
wrong, pretty
many.
much.
Yeah. And like I have autism and ADHD, and like my brain's going a million miles a second. So I'm constantly doing new creative choices. And with 3D, it's a bit more limiting because you have to really plan what you're doing. And so like I do the bare minimum of 3D, honestly. Um, I'm trying to get a little bit more into it, but I'm like Dylan. I'll go and do basic stuff in 3D, add my light source, build the composition a little bit in 3D, render it out, and then paint the living crap out of it. Just because it's like I can photo bash on it and get the result I want,
Mm-hmm.
rather than having that one beautiful render and that's it. And when people are doing those one-off beautiful renders, that's a whole nother level. That's a whole nother side of the brain that's just always impressive to see.
I see.
Um, yeah.
But there's
Mm.
like I don't believe there's one way to do any work.
Yeah.
So and it's like you're comparing the way that you work with fucking Dylan Cole. So I think you're doing pretty good. Like let's just be honest right here. And guys, if you don't know Dylan Cole, just do some research.
Yeah.
Avatar 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, just check
Mhm.
it out the work this dude does, and you're gonna come back
Oh,
and
it's
say, oh
insane.
well, maybe I want to be like him too.
Mhm.
And I thought it was cool that you said that you kind of combine
Mhm.
the 3D with the painting techniques over, because I feel like even for my type of work, which is images, I feel
Mhm.
like when you combine both is when you can
Yeah.
get the most realistic,
Mhm.
magical, like is when you can go
Exactly.
overboard, is when you can create images
Yeah.
like, holy shit, like this dude,
Yeah.
I don't even know what he uses,
Mhm.
but it looks amazing,
Mhm. Yeah. So I do a lot of CG paint overs as well. So I take the CG passes that somebody has made, whoever that person is, and then I paint on those passes, or I paint on top of the
Like
beauty.
with Substance Painter, like which do
Oh,
you?
they'll give me the CG passes, the cryptomatte, the diffuse, the
So you're
specular.
just combining Photoshop and do some.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Or I'll even do it all in Nuke just to get what I need and project on that if the camera's moving or not. Um, but that's pretty much it. And then even like painting on top of the CG. So like you asked me about like the TV show For All Mankind, everything for that was either projecting in Nuke and in Maya, it was just painting on those surfaces and on those particular frames for the projection, so it sticks to it. And it's either painting textures or extending something or replacing an element fully, as a 2D thing, because it's, well, depending on how
So you paint
dynamic.
frame by frame. He selects the
No,
frames that you
it's
have to do. How does the? Sorry,
um so
I don't have enough
the way it
experience
works.
to understand that.
Actually, I have Nuke open on a project I'm working with on a friend. Could I share screen?
Absolutely, go for it. I just gave you permission.
Share screen. Okay. Let me know if you can see it.
Yeah.
Let's go that way. So this is Nuke. It's a compositing program. And the way it works is you have your timeline right here, right? So this particular shot is 220 frames. And in there, I'm just projecting on certain frames for cleaning things up or extending something, or um,
Ah.
and so you have like your camera, the motion of it moving, and then
Mm-hmm.
you're just projecting on geometry on those frames that you need to paint.
So with the geometry, you can know how much you need to do or not.
Exactly. So you're not painting. frame by frame, you're picking a certain frame in a certain time to paint on that fits at that value of depth. And then
Mm,
you have the geometry of like, hey, here's where in the space, here's where your sky is, here's where your stadium is, here's where your ground is, here's where your pillars are. And then you're projecting on that geometry on those frames on that timeline. And it'll work for the
awesome.
whole thing.
I got
If
it.
that
I
makes sense.
understood now.
Yeah.
Nice.
Um,
Cool.
and you get into scripts like this. And then you do all sorts of different paintings. Like this one's the sky. If give it a moment, it's a large scale sky. I'll do copy here.
Ah.
And this is when you learn how to paint with distortions and resolution types, because the moon kind of looks kind of like an egg shape a little bit
Mm-hmm.
with the distortion. But when we project it
Yeah,
on
when
the
the
right,
camera shows, it's gonna look normal, right? Yeah.
exactly. So it comes up perfectly
Wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
circular just because it like redistorts it back.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Damn,
but that
that's sick, dude.
um, that's what I do. Like this is how I do stuff for work. It's a lot of Nuke, a lot of Photoshop, painting on different passes, different styles, and then using any um, 3D software, Blender, Maya, 3ds Max for like getting the geometry just to
Got
paint
it.
so it sticks on it.
Cool.
Yeah.
You can turn off the screen sharing now.
Uh, who did that? There we go. Yeah.
That's cool because what I was gonna say. Because you also have to have a big understanding of cameras, right? How
Mhm.
the cameras work and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like we were talking offline before we started
Mhm.
interviews, like that gives. I feel like nowadays, because I was, hey guys, I was asking him like if he
Mhm.
ever thought about making his like a short movie or something like this, because we all know like as you evolve in your artistic journey, you always want to have more
Mhm.
control over everything.
Mhm.
It's crazy. Like the more knowledge we have, we become more of a control freaks, like that want
Yeah.
everything the way that you imagine everything. So I was asking him about if he wants to do any short movies or anything, and he said that he's working on. So
Mhm. Mhm.
whenever you release, please let us know,
Oh, well, yeah.
and we would love to check it out. Now, I
Yeah.
would like to ask about some specific work that you did.
Sure.
And because let's be honest, it's a lot of cool shit. And from Marvel movies to series and Star Trek,
Yeah.
Halo.
Well, I'm
Oof,
hoping I post as much as I can because matte painting is very undermined in the industry.
really?
You'd be
Still?
surprised that like when you
I
go
think
to the
it's
red
such like a
carpet,
wizard job, like that you have to be like a magician.
it's I always saw it as kind of like a magical job, but it's so undermined because when they're at the red carpet, they do the Globe Awards and the VS Awards and whatever. Matte painting gets shoved onto CG environments and environment work, and it used to be very specific for awards, but now it's all put under one category. And I try to post as much of what I've done to help try to separate it to get other people to like, hey, if you're doing a map painting, post it, show it, especially client stuff. Because I'm kind of hoping that it'll help bring back map painting a little bit because everyone always talks about how map painting's dying. I personally completely disagree.
I disagree too.
Just because everything 3D. But I always call BS on it because it's like, okay, if that was the case, why do I still have a job then? Right? It like your that statement becomes irrelevant. And with the type of map painting, there's so many different types of map painters too, that it really is a big realm of what you can and cannot do. Um, and then I thought about this when you were saying about knowing the cameras. When you learn about cameras, your perception of doing work digitally completely changes. because you learn what makes a pixel, right?
Mm,
And
yeah.
how to blend pixels together, the transparencies and hues and opacities of pixels, and like when you have motion blur happening, how does that pixel get stretched? Like it really changes like just even the way you work because you have to like change some things so that you can get to that effect.
Hmm.
It's kind of
So when you're watching movies nowadays, you're kind of like a little computer is just like, oh shit, this camera here went this way. That's why he
yeah,
did this way. Blah, blah, blah. You
yeah,
watch like this all the time.
yeah. Because I see it now when I'm like, oh, there's Houdini clouds, there's speed tree, there's Simpsons banner,
That's
there's
awesome.
Maya, there's
I would
rigging.
like to watch a movie if you like do a watch party and just have you like doing some comments and say, oh, look at this. I think this is interesting.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
it's sometimes VFX artists, we go to movies and we do that just because it's fun, just to look and be like, oh man, that looks so fake, or that looks really real, or like look at all those Terrigen skies or something, just to mess with it a little bit.
Nice. Going on that wave, which can you name like can you give me like your top 5 movies made for matte painters that matte painters love
Oh,
it?
one of the movies that I would recommend people to watch is called Finch with Tom Hanks. That one, the amount of matte painting
Oh,
in
the one
that
with the
movie,
robot, right?
yeah. Every aerial shot you see, all the mountains, the skies, all a huge majority of the sand and buildings was matte
Oh
painted.
shit, even the sand?
Oh yeah, the amount of man, we sand block, right? Like we got so much, it's so much goddamn sand in that movie.
Wow.
Um, every shot was just a hero shot for that film. And um it won a lot of awards for CG for the character, but none for the environment, unfortunately. But it was like that one I always considered a matte painter's dream just because it was a huge amount of matte paintings, huge immense amount from doing all sorts
Cool.
of different types of graffiti to just sand and cities and destruction.
All right. More four.
Um, hmm, I'd go with Maleficent. That one had a lot of matte paintings into it as
With
well. A lot of
Angelina Jolie, right?
yeah, yeah, even the first one as well. That one has really good ones. Are we going based on ones that I've worked on or just in all overall?
Anything.
Oh,
Anything.
two best films ever, like that are my top favorite that have the map paintings are super obvious, but they're seamless. Journey to the Center of the Earth and Time Machine. And I believe both of them were from like 1960 and 1964. Um, obvious that they were matte paintings, but they are they describe what matte painting is perfectly because you can see the like the cutout of the
Hmm.
people on the set with the painting behind it. So it's incredibly obvious, but at the same time, like it's beautiful work. It's pretty much seamless. And I kind of feel like sometimes those hold up to today's standards, and it was just a flat image. Um,
And on those times there was no Control Z. Let's just be honest right here.
exactly. It was
If you
no
fuck
control
up, we need
Z.
to go back all the way to it again.
Oh yeah. I know a few map painters that worked on those kind of movies, and they had to do a painting a day. And so you had your week's 5 days, you get 5 paintings done. And then if you got an extra painting done during that week, that was considered like your benefits, your overtime. That extra like uh tip at the end of the week for like, hey, good job, you got an extra painting done. Here's some extra cash, and that was it. So it really determined like how fast you could paint.
Because you're getting paid by painting.
Yeah, not by hour, not by day, by painting. Um,
What
one of
about Blade Runner?
that one was more the original, the first
Yeah,
one. The first one had a lot of matte paintings. Um, the new one not so much. That one's more 3D more than anything. Um, oh, I always loved Judge Dredd.
Judge
That one,
Dredd. Ah, the, the
yeah,
the second one, right?
I liked all of them, even the one with Sylvester Stallone. It's so bad, but it's so good,
No, but
just
I
because of
remember
how bad
watching
it
the movie. I
was.
was like, damn, this is the future. You know, like
Yeah,
it was crazy.
yeah.
It's a
Mr. I
cool
am
movie.
the
Both
law.
of them.
Yeah, mhm, yeah. So if people want to see matte paintings, watch old movies. You'll see it. But those would be my top movies to
Nice,
recommend people to see for matte paintings.
nice, nice. Okay, so we're getting close to the 1 hour mark,
Mhm.
and to not take too much of your time, I would
Yeah.
like to ask you
Mhm.
to show us if, because we talked before, and you ask you to separate a file for us so we
Mhm.
can check it out and know a little bit what goes behind this beautiful mind when you're working. And you can share with us, talk a little bit, and I'll ask some questions too.
Mhm. Sure,
And yeah, go ahead, my friend.
sure. Um, so we were talking about this piece, the magic beans. Um, this was actually created by Thomas Guyman. I'm not sure how you say his last name. This was a matte paint challenge, and yeah, it was this house. No, where was it? Um, he's in the VFX industry,
Mm-hmm.
and he contributed. Oh, here it is. Um, this CG render that he did
Ah.
uh, for the competition for matte paint.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was just to teach people how to use CG passes. So I made a small mini course on how to use passes and what you could potentially do with this. And out came my piece of magic beans, my interpretation of it.
Dope.
And um, so this is what he created, his
Mm-hmm.
own style of it. And he's also a matte painter.
Nice.
Um, so he gave us all the passes.
And this is
Uh,
usually what you would get in if somebody made a render for you.
Pretty
Like
much, yeah.
this would be like the regular maps
Mhm.
that you get from them, right?
Exactly, yeah. And then I just use whatever and pull whatever I need out of it. Um, so that this is the beauty, the depth and normal path, a ZD depth,
Mm-hmm.
uh, AO, and then just different types of crypto mats.
AO is ambient occlusion, right? AO
Yeah.
is okay.
So more of the, like contact shadows, such in there too. And then different types of just masks for
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Flat lighting, which is always kind of nice. So if you want to do different types of lighting to relight the image,
Nice.
um, full AO of the full thing, and then other crypto mats. So he provided all of that, and then it was up to everyone in the competition to do whatever they wanted, create whatever. So I came up with this. Um, it's a pretty heavy PSD file, but I'll uh, there's always a lot of layers. I always start with my sky and the deep background. Um, and in it, you can kind of see I use the same image again and again.
Mm-hmm.
That's something for me as is a I would consider a good map painter is somebody who can use the same thing again and again and again and again. Because to find like different images every single time and match them is that's a lot of work.
So it's
Uh,
also time consuming, right?
oh yeah, insanely time consuming. Um, so it's man, what's in here? I haven't opened this in a while. One PSD is actually just doing the sky for cleaning it up and extending whatever I needed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then just adding vines. I believe these were just painting. Um,
Oh, so you just paint those. Ah, that's cool.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot of times I just will make my own like leaf brush or something and just paint the shape until I get it right. And
Nice.
then you'll warp it if needed. And like on that paintbrush, you can add bump and specular just to get
Mm-hmm.
the lighting direction. Um, and then I even took like images of roots and whatnot to make like brushes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I started with the big one, and then from there just went and reused the same one, just flipped them here and there and like squished it or whatever to make whatever I needed. Um, then from there, I had my foreground, some more uh,
You don't need to go layer by layer.
dots or
Just
whatever.
give us like kind of the general ideas.
Yeah.
You feel like you're going too deep, like whatever you feel like
There we
it's
go.
more people will
Mhm.
understand better.
The one thing that I kind of did was I cut into the image itself.
Oh, so that
Because
breaking on the roof you made yourself. That's cool.
yeah, yep. Just because I was like, I want the tree to look like it came out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, it was adding some like rooftop pieces behind it, just to look like
Mm-hmm.
there was the damage. Um, and even putting stuff behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
To
and
help on that
then
3D look, right? To make
yeah,
sense. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, we didn't even see the damage behind it, but um, just to help.
Just for your peace of mind, right?
Yeah. Sometimes it really is for a peace of mind. And then just adding more rooftop stuff on top. And then painting the magic into it was a little bit trickier. This one I redid the effects several times just to get the look that I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love fairy tales and um uh we always grew up on a house in the middle of nowhere, and I always loved the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. So I was kind of playing with that theme a bit with this. And there's a lot of manual painting uh that went into this. Um and then I like again it's more peace of mind for just like painting on um the textures of the wood here. Like
Mm-hmm.
even though we don't need it, it's that peace of mind.
I get it.
Um, it was the same for like the ground and the scarecrow and just detailing this. Like I love painting on top of CG because you get to just detail every little thing, every little
Mm-hmm.
aspect. Um,
And
and
it's
then
easier to refine, right? If you have a good base
mm,
that you can kind of pull from and kind of put your own touch on it.
exactly. And then a few things that I always do. Oh, I didn't do it here. These are just some magic elements created um, just to, was a bigger piece. Oh, uh, just some magic elements to get the smoky effect
Mm-hmm.
onto it.
I really
When I'm,
like that purple and blue hues, like how they combine
yeah,
themselves with the little
mhm,
bit of green. It's
yeah,
a really nice combination of colors.
yeah. It's just that tiny little hint, and that's what made this pop, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at first, I want to go all purple, but it, all those blues and greens was just kind of like a happy accident that I was like, oh man, I keep that. Um, and then from there, just getting like the swoosh effect of like
Mm-hmm.
the motion happening a little bit. So it's taking a lot of the same element and then even like combining the entire image together and doing like a Gaussian blur, motion blur, and warping it,
Mm-hmm.
and then just painting that.
To show that movement, that
Yeah,
atmospheric movement, right? Because it's not
yeah,
just moving
mm,
the tree itself, is moving the air, it's
yeah,
creating energy, it's magical. So
yeah,
yeah, that's
exactly.
gonna be a lot of like painting, take a break, look again,
Yeah.
like zoom
Oh
in,
yeah.
zoom out.
Yeah. And then like even doing some of these, they're kind of like the basic effects in Photoshop, right? Through the filters and
Hmm.
just play with those to help give it like that pixel breaking effect a bit.
Hmm.
Which
Distortion, right? Yeah.
yeah, even though I mean it's not like actually breaking it, but it I thought it was kind of funny in its own sense of like, oh, it's breaking the pixels and pulling the image and whatnot
Nice.
here and there. Um, and then just continuing those effects a little bit until I get what I like. Um, Let's see what else. Oh, and then it was doing the same thing for like the ground,
Mm-hmm.
just warping the image because it's like I need to build like the growth of everything. So let's do some more warps around it just to pull. Um, and then I always tend to do touch-ups at the end of just a little bit of painting of edges, rim lights, any little specular dots or whatever that I need.
Mm-hmm.
Because I am such a detail-oriented person that it just I know it's there, other people might not know, but I feel it contributes to that realism.
Absolutely.
Um, and then just any kind of added lights on top
Mm-hmm.
for curves. And then my process for a lot of work is at the end, just combine the image and paint on
Was that
top.
like a bloom effect? Something like that? No.
Uh,
Oh,
no, it was just for getting some more light happening.
to create more
Um,
contrast, yeah.
yeah, just a little bit, just to get that light wrapping around in the back. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
like you're saying, just that
Oh, yeah, yeah,
contrast.
yeah. It gives a nice touch.
Yeah. Um,
And it's
and,
weirdly enough, it helps because it's almost like a narrow, right?
mhm,
Like
yeah,
if you look at the lighting, like it comes from the sides and then boom, shoots up.
mhm.
So you're
Exactly.
lighting
Yeah.
it up on the sides there allows to guide the eye of the observer to go straight to the middle and just
Mhm.
poof up.
Exactly. Yeah. It flows with it. Um, and then took some more leaves of like, okay, I want some like atmospheric motion happening. So just put leaves and put in the direction.
Nice. Really subtle,
Um,
but makes a nice effect.
exactly. Yeah. Um, And then on the final, I just do some camera raw filters of like some lens distortion, a little bit of grain and noise, a little bit of chromatic aberration if needed, and that's about it really.
Nice.
Um,
How long did you work on that piece?
I think I spent a good 4 days
Nice.
on it, and a lot of the work was really just on the house because it's and just detailing the render itself. Um,
To get to look how you want it. I see.
Yeah, because I just wanted more texture on it. So I was spending a lot of time just to replace the texture and actually apply the right light and coloring to it to get
Because
what I
because
wanted.
if everybody's using the same render for the challenge, you kind of have to make your own, right?
Exactly,
Otherwise,
yeah.
you won't be judged with the same like it will be judged better if you have your own if you spend that time to detail everything.
Yeah, exactly. And I go nuts for detail. So
That's a lot. That's a lot of work, man.
yeah, but I feel like it was worth it.
Absolutely, yeah.
It gives your own signature, even though Thomas did a majority of the work with the render. Like you're saying, just for the competition, it's like, hey, all right, I want something slightly different.
You just
I
want
want
to
my own.
extract the best of the shape that you got, right?
Exactly. And then from there, it's like, okay, I needed some different lighting, and fix some of the lighting, and just add detail where I need it to be. Even
Nice.
for the ground. Um,
So cool, man.
and this actually took 3 PSDs because um, what was it? The house was 1 PSD in itself to detail. Sky
Hmm.
and the background was 1 PSD, and then this one was the final one where it's just like take all the elements and combine it and keep finessing it with all the effects.
I see.
Yeah,
That's
like
awesome.
everything you see on my station is always going to be between 3 to 5 PSDs.
And usually do one for the sky, one for the main piece of the
Yeah,
like of the environment, and the other one would be like I don't know, like the floor
the
or
yeah. I always try to break it up based on the different elements if I can, and then 1 or 2 PSDs where it's just taking everything together and finessing it and combining it and making sure that it's blends together. And then sometimes you just go back and forth between the PSDs just
hmm
to, oh, it's working really well here. I need to go back and adjust a mask here or whatever, and then duplicate it back into. So it's a big workaround, but um, for me personally, I feel like gives me the best result that I can get. Um, and these PSTs get super fucking heavy,
Yep.
so it allows me just to work faster and a
Be
bit more
more
efficiently.
efficient if you're
Yeah,
if you're yeah.
exactly. And get the detail that I am always looking for.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for bringing us this awesome piece, and you can stop the share screen now,
Mhm.
please. And we're getting to the final, man, the final stages of the podcast. I have one more question, but
Mhm.
I want to
Yeah.
thank you so much for everything so far. It has been very fun,
Thank
and
you.
you are an awesome person and with a great story and with cool artwork, and it kind of really inspired me. I have some shots here that I'm probably gonna work on tomorrow or today because I just got inspired by you. So to finish up,
Mhm.
I know we spoke about a lot of Photoshop, a lot about matte painting, but I have one question that if
Mhm.
I don't ask you, I would be kind of mad with myself. I
Okay.
want to know, my brother, what do you think about this introduction of AI
Uh,
in the world? What is your take on
well, first of all, thanks for having me on. It I really like showing this and showing people with this because I think it helps really um, give an open perspective to people that, oh, it's possible. You can do this. You can make money off of it. And if it really is your passion, you're happy with it, fucking do it. Don't don't sit and wait. Go for it. Because it's a coach of mine, he said that people have two regrets in life, one being who they married, and the second one being what their career was in life. So might as well make at least one of those worth it.
and
And I
you just
I
need
don't
one
ever
person to believe in your dream, right? Just you.
exactly
You don't need anybody else.
exactly. You just need you, and the rest doesn't really honestly matter. It's got to be you, and love what you do, and keep going. And you're gonna have moments when it goes down, but that's why you do personal work, I think, because you can feed into it and go. And then with AI, I really am not worried about it. People right now are quitting the industry and quitting art and giving up. And I think this would actually be the time to not give up. This would be the time that if you have an IP or a personal idea or a personal project or something you've always wanted to create it, go fucking make it. Because and this also is one of the reasons why I post a lot on ArtStation of work because it proves the point that AI is kind of irrelevant. We need people to make things because everything that we've done, even with what you've made, is very specific. AI can't go and do the intervals that clients are needing on a very specific, particular way, style, time frame, task, whatever that is. It cannot do it. And I don't personally think it ever will because it you need the human touch.
It's almost too specific, right?
Yeah, it's almost too specific and and people like doing the work for people. It helps give us a purpose. It
Yeah.
helps give us a reason of being. And that's why I'm not worried about AI because I don't get hired for AI. I don't get hired because I can get an image done in a second. I get hired because of quality.
And
And
also your imagination, I feel like.
exactly. And that's why I think artists are hired for what they do, quality and imagination. And just like the added benefit is budget and time. And AI sure is can deal with budget and time, but the imagination and the quality and the personality, everything's gone. And I think that people and even clients and actors and directors, they've been talking about it that AI is killing art 100%, and that they're all against it. And the movement's so big for being against AI that humanity, creativity will persevere over it 100%. And I really think that if you are afraid of AI, stop, do your own thing, and put yourself to the test. Don't let AI control your fear. You control your fear. Let you take a
Or let that
chance.
fuel
Yeah,
your motivation. You
exactly.
know, let that be the reason why you want to do your shit.
Exactly. And I very much truly believe that if you go in that route of let it fuel you, it's going to do nothing but benefit you. It's going to give you happiness. It's going to eventually give you the financial support that people are looking for. Give that time. People are always wanting, like, I need money now. As much as that makes sense, give it time and let the art speak for itself. Like that holds so much truth in it. And that's where like the creativity, the imagination, the quality, that's where that shines in, is letting that be it. And so with AI, I don't think people need to be worried.
Yes.
Let AI is always going to be there, accept that reality. But you do you always.
So you feel like the studios and the companies will be investing more, not just in the skill of the artist, but the artist as like a complete, like the person, like
Mhm.
what
Yeah,
is everything that, for example, that Ian bring to my team besides
exactly.
just his skills.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think companies are going to get more specific with who they hire. And I think that they're going to get to a point where it is we need to hire. This is why I like being specialized in map painting, because it is a very niche job. And I think with all the different forms of art, companies are going to be very specific on who they hire rather than it becoming, all right, anyone can do anything, which is what like today's world is. I think slowly it's flipping towards being specific, being specialized. And like you're saying, companies are going to be like, hey, we want to hire Hugo, we want to hire Ian, we want to hire Dylan, do so. And that's where your style comes into play, your imagination, your quality, your work comes in.
So the
And
message for the artist will be learn how to create your value
yeah,
through
create
your
your
work,
value.
that in the
Yeah.
future, that's what's gonna make
Yeah,
you work with other people, right?
exactly. Create your value and don't let AI get to you. If it really bothers you, just shut it off. Unplug it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. In the beginning, I kind of went on this rabbit hole, and I was
Yeah.
watching like
I watched
fucking
all the Terminator movies.
no, just like the new tools that was coming out. And after 2 weeks, I'm like, dude, I'm done with this shit. I cannot, because I was getting paranoid. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm
Yeah.
gonna keep an eye on it, but from
Yeah.
far away. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want this to be,
Yeah.
I don't want to feel like
Mhm.
put a lot of
Overwhelmed.
fear and doubt in my mind, because I feel
Yeah.
like because we are like, as an artist, as artists, like, if you don't have a fucking good self-esteem and if you don't believe in yourself, you're not gonna do any work that is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's just be
Exactly.
honest. If you don't trust yourself and you believe in yourself, you're a shit artist. Like,
Yeah. You're not going to get far. But just don't worry about AI. Just sit and watch it, and it's actually getting better. Like with what the EU did, what the US is doing right now, what Canada has come up with for AI. It's slowly leaning into the favor of the artists, of people, of humans, because
mhm.
it has affected every type of job,
Yeah,
not just
yeah,
creating images, everything.
everybody, yeah,
Like you can't put the entire world out of work. Like you can't.
yeah.
Um, and I think we're in a pivotal point where it's just a tool. We don't know the extent of this. That's why everyone's going ballistic, because everyone's testing it on many different levels and it's very sporadic. So let people do it. It's going to happen anyways. Just you do you. Don't worry too
Nice.
much.
Wow. All right. With this, we're gonna finish this podcast in a beautiful way. Before we finish, I have to say this, otherwise he's gonna kill me. Thank you so much, Ricardo Nakazawa, for introducing me to this dude. And because if it was not for you, I was not gonna be able to get in contact with him. So, Ricardo, abraço, irmão, brigadão. You're the best. And Ian, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I had a great time. Like, I honestly could go for more, like an hour or more, but to not extend this too long, I would like you to invite you. I'd like to invite you to come back sometime in the future, so
Absolutely.
we can kind of do a catch up where you are and how has been a scanline and the new projects that you work on. And I'm gonna leave this final moments for you to say goodbye, leave your social media here. I'm gonna put your ArtStation on the description of the video, so don't worry about that. But I'll give you this time for you to say your last words here before we cut it off.
Yeah, well, thank you, Hugo. I appreciate it. The interview was perfect. I loved it. Thank you for letting me share my story. I really genuinely hope it helps people and gives people or reinstills the belief for people that you can do this. And I hope I can lead by example. And from what I've seen, you're leading by example as well. And it's absolutely beautiful to see other artists doing that. So thank you for doing that and being that leader for others. And he's gonna kill me for it too. How do you say his name?
Ricardo Nakazawa.
Ricardo?
Ricardo, yeah.
Ricardo, and thank you to Ricardo for connecting us as well. He's been doing great with getting into matte painting as well, and
Yeah, he is.
he's hustling it, and I'm proud of him for it. And I know he's listened to other podcasts of me and such, and he's on a similar boat. He's going to get there, and I'm proud of him, and I hope other people who are listening that you can even look to him as an example as well. And to anyone listening, just keep on creating. You got this.
Nice. All right, my people, we're done for the day, and we'll come back with more Dodge and Burn podcasts. See ya.